Hello everybody, and welcome to Tim and Rina's Italian Lifestyle channel. In this video, we want to share with you a visit that we made to Palermo in Sicily just before the pandemic started. If you like this video, please do subscribe to our channel by clicking the red button on the bottom left of the screen. You will then get notifications for all of our new videos, including cooking classes, wine tastings, and travelogues. So let's get started, and we hope that you enjoy our trip as much as we did. We flew out of Turin on a foggy winter day and arrived in brilliant sunshine at Palermo's airport, named after the two brave magistrates Giovanni Falcone and Paolo Borsellino, who were brutally murdered by the mafia after being prosecuted by them. After checking into our apartment, we went for a walk about downtown Palermo, which is a layer cake city. Greek, Roman, Byzantine, Arab, Norman, Baroque, and modern styles. But the streets are mainly the later periods with traces of Arab and Norman in the old churches. We have the ultra-modern post office in what I call Mussolini modern, and almost next door, a gingerbread Sicilian Baroque piazza. This is the splendid Teatro Massimo, the largest opera house in Italy, built after the Risorgimento. As you get into the side streets, the buildings become an interesting hodgepodge of alleys, steps, and many different styles of buildings. And mind the cats, who seem to own the streets all over Palermo. We were looking for one of Palermo's famous street markets for lunch, and we got lost so many times. Finally, we found the Mercato Ballaro, a huge, noisy sprawl of street stalls spread over several blocks, the largest and oldest market in Palermo, dating back to the 10th century. You can find almost anything here, and we were blown away by the incredible varieties of vegetable and fruit, Sicily, of course, having a subtropical climate, as well as the seafood at prices which for us were so cheap and so much variety. A food lover's paradise. We did visit the other two street markets while we were here, but Ballaro was by far and away our favorite. And for lunch, of course, street food. So many little outdoor restaurants serving absolutely fresh food prepared in front of you. We were charmed by the name of this place with its two friendly ladies and had a sumptuous lunch, antipasti galore, washed down by a bottle of local Inozolia white wine. I think the total bill was around 20 euros. And more cats, of course. Must be well fed on all that. At lunch, it was time for one of my favorite desserts in the whole world, a cannolo. If you don't know, these are fried pastry tubes filled on the spot with fresh sheep milk ricotta and bits of nuts, chocolate chips, and dried fruit. They were probably introduced by the Arabs when they controlled Sicily from the 800s until the Norman conquest in the 11th century. There is just something about Sicilian sheep ricotta that other ricottas in Italy just do not match. I had to ration myself to only 2 cannoli a day. The next day we took the bus down to the old citadel, the Palazzo dei Normanni, which was the royal palace first for the Muslim emirs and then the Norman and the later kings of Sicily. The private chapel, built by the Norman kings, the Cappella Palatina, is by far and away the biggest attraction, a mixture of Arab, Norman, and Byzantine architectural styles. Commissioned by King Roger II in 1132, it took 8 years to build. The Normans employed local craftsmen to create this veritable palace of bling, with its gorgeous Byzantine mosaics and Islamic Mercatus ceiling made of carved wood. The transept features Greek Orthodox saints, and the nave shows the Norman kings administering justice. I have been in many famous churches all over the world, but this one blew us both away by its grandeur. I would think it would be hard to focus on the spiritual life surrounded by all this glitter. In the lower galleries of the palace, there was an exhibition of paintings made to commemorate the Great Plague of 1624, with several pictures by Dutch artist Van Dyck, who was stuck and isolated in the city at this time. The pandemic was supposedly lifted by the intervention of Saint Rosalia, a religious hermit from the 11th century who died in a cave in nearby Monte Pellegrino and who appeared in a dream to a hunter, telling him where to find her bones and carry them in procession around the city. This hunter followed the instructions and the plague miraculously ceased. Modern science says that the plague had probably run its course. However, Santa Rosalia is now the patron saint of Palermo, and there is a yearly day-long festival in her honor, and pilgrims still walk barefoot up the mountain to the cave, which is now a sanctuary. While walking around another section of Palermo, we stumbled across the ceremonial chariot which is used in the annual parade. It almost reminds me of some of the chariots used in Hindu festivals in India. Interestingly, I have read that the devotion to Santa Rosalia is also spread among the large Hindu Tamil community of Sri Lankan origin who has settled in Palermo. Down the road from the royal palace is the San Giovanni degli Eremiti, a former Benedictine monastery dating to before the Arabs, who had converted it to a mosque. Later it was restored by the Normans in classic Arab Byzantine normal style. It has no interior decorations, but the cloister's medieval garden and distinctive red domes make it a peaceful and elegant building in contrast to the bling of the royal chapel. And let's not forget the cloister cat enjoying its morning meditation. Also close to the royal palace is the Palermo Cathedral, erected in 1185 by the Norman Archbishop of Palermo on the area of an early Byzantine basilica. Although it is on a grand scale, to us it lacked the warmth and touch of San Giovanni and the glory of the royal chapel. The main item of interest for me as a history buff were the three enormous sarcophagi done in red porphyro rock of King Roger II, his daughter Queen Constantine I of Sicily. Our last church visit in the old historical district was to the Santa Maria dell'Ammiraglio, the Church of St. Mary of the Admiral, also called La Materana. The church was sponsored by George of Antioch, Syrian Christian admiral and principal minister of King Roger II. Originally Eastern Orthodox, it is built in the classic Arab Byzantine style of the period and dates to around 1143. It is now part of the Italian Albanian Church, part of the Catholic Church, but following the ritual and spiritual traditions of the Eastern Orthodox Church. It serves the Albanian community of Palermo, who took refuge in the 15th century from the persecution of the Ottoman Empire, another ingredient for the great cultural melting pot of Sicily. For dinner, we went to the Enoteche Vino Veritas in the new part of Palermo, a fabulous Enoteche wine bar with a huge choice of Sicilian wines and great food to have dinner for. Sicilian red prawns, always our favorite. Bocchettini pasta with wild fennel and breadcrumbs, double carb. Tagliatelle di Seppia. We sampled a complete range of Sicilian wines, starting with a very nice Metodo Classico made from Chardonnay. Next we tried a Frappato, which is a Sicilian cousin of Sangiovese, a light red wine but not spectacular. Now a Lupatri Nevolo di Avolo 2014 from Cristo di Campobello, which we really enjoyed. Our favorite red was Urso Rosso, a Nerello Mascalese grown on the slopes of Mount Etna. And for dessert, a Ben Rye Passito di Pantelera from the famous Donna Fugato winery, paired with Sicilian ricotta and strawberries. Absolutely fabulous. Next day, we went up to Monreale after getting a little lost on the bus, I must admit. Monreale sits on the slope of Monte Caputo and overlooks the fertile valley called the Conca d'Oro, or the Golden Shell, with stunning views of Palermo city and the environments. The Norman kings had a hunting lodge here, and in 1174 William II commenced building a new cathedral, probably in competition to the Bishop of Palermo's Grand Cathedral in the city. The church, which includes a monastery, is regarded as one of the greatest existent examples of Norman architecture, and in the sheer quantity of Byzantine-style mosaics, it almost puts the palace chapel to shame. The architecture is again a mixture of Orthodox and Catholic styles, but without Arab influence. It is listed as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And right behind the cathedral, we found a charming little restaurant, the Osteria Ballaro, run by a Sicilian lady who grew up in California, which doubles as a music bar at night times. A good local choice of food and not touristy at all. Before the Normans, the Arabs and the Romans, Sicily was colonized by the Greeks, and there are many remnants of ancient Greek culture to be found all over the island. On our last day, we went to the Antonio Salinas Archaeological Museum to soak in some of the antiquities. The building has a pleasant courtyard surrounded by porticos and statues. No cats, but we love the antics of the not-so-antique turtles in the pond. So much to see here. I particularly liked the fine set of wine jugs and drinking vessels with scenes depicting Dionysian rituals and symposiums. Another thing that struck me was a temple fringe that had been painted in what were its probable colors, and of course, the bare stone walls that we see today on Greek temples must have been a ritual of color in ancient days. After the museum, we went to the nearby Osteria Ballaro, named after the street market, but definitely upmarket. The presentation and quality of the dishes earned the highest marks from us, and paired with some wonderful Sicilian wines, a great restaurant to visit. On our last evening, we were fortunate to have acquired tickets for a show at the Teatro Massimo. After all, how can you come to Palermo and not take in a show here? Regrettably, we were at the wrong time for an opera, but we took in a performance of My Fair Lady. How quaint to see this classic London musical here in Palermo, and most highly entertaining. A wonderful evening. Cinema fans will recognize the steps leading to the Opera House, where the Godfather 3 movie, Michael Corleone's daughter, was shot. Just a reminder, folks, we're in Sicily. After the show, we wandered a little bit around the streets, had a fabulous pizza and gelato, and off to bed for an early morning flight back to Piedmont. We will return. We hope that you have enjoyed this video, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel and to like this video. See you later.